Everyone's talking about AI these days, right? This season on Compiler, we're diving deep into how AI is reshaping the world we live in. Join us for a new season of Compiler, an original podcast from Red Hat. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to paint their door a vibrant shade of blue. Others have the need to decorate their bathroom with fish, anchors, and other nautical items. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.
Coming up on episode 308 of Wheel Bearings, we've got special guest Stephanie Brinley joining us. We also have the Toyota GR Corolla Morizo, the Lamborghini Urus Performante, the Lexus LC500, the 2024 Mustang First Drive, and what are people willing to pay subscriptions for in their cars? All that and more coming up next. This is episode 308 of Wheel Bearings. I'm Sam Abul-Samad from Guidehouse Insights.
I am Roberto Baldwin from Hot Cars and Top Speed.
And we have a special guest today sitting in for Nicole. Stephanie, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Stephanie Brinley with S&P Global Mobility.
And Steph, what do you do at S&P Global Mobility?
Yeah, I look at the industry and sales and production and performance for a product that we have called Auto Intelligence, and go through and kind of put the news in perspective for clients for the day and for the week, and why should things matter?
kind of like what I do too.
Kind of, yeah.
All right. Well, since you are our guest today, why don't you go first and tell us what you've been driving this week? So
this week, I drove the Lexus LC500, and also along with you, the Ford Mustang, the 2024 Ford Mustang. The LC500 isn't necessarily significantly new or different this year, but after a slew of most of the year, you spend time in utility vehicles. I definitely am finding myself very happy in the sleek big coupe. It's a larger coupe than I would personally necessarily choose, but it's just nice, and it's quick, and it's fast, and it's powerful, and it sounds good, and it feels good, and it's really got this great red interior and good exterior. So I'm enjoying it quite a bit.
I first drove the LC, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago when it first came out, and was really surprised by how much I liked it. I mean, it's one of those classic grand touring coupes. It's not really meant to be an all-out sports car like the old LFA was, but it's big, luxurious, fast, for covering a lot of ground quickly. It
does still have the older Lexus infotainment system, and so
there is that.
So other than that, but as a grand touring coupe, fine. I can work with that. That's not the infotainment system that I would prefer ever. But but I was coming back from a trip the other day and found myself on the freeway and not 100% paying attention to how fast I was going, paying more attention to the fact that I wanted to get somewhere. And for whatever reason, I-75 was moving pretty quickly anyway. And I looked down, and there was a number there that I thought, "Whoa, don't think I need to be there." Wasn't really trying, wasn't pushing it. Car did not even bat an eye. It was just
So you were going slightly more than 65?
Mm-hmm. A little bit more than 65.
Just tell the officer you thought it was kilometers, and you're like, "Well, I got to be going quicker than this."
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we are close enough to the Canadian border. Steph lives here in the Detroit area.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there you go.
So
blame Canada.
Yeah.
It was really nice how smooth it just sort of happened. It's not like I was accelerating 0 to 60 and really kind of intending to go super fast. I was just kind of a little bit faster than traffic, which was atypically fast too. But I was coming home from the vet. I wanted to get my cat home. She was
okay.
unhappy.
That makes sense.
Cat
needs to get home.
That makes total sense to me as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, if I was a police officer and I had pulled you over in those circumstances, I would have said, well, in that case, you've got an ill cat.
Yes,
You've got to get her home.
I
She
gotta
needs
get
to
my
get home
kitty
and
home.
rest.
Come on, people.
Yeah.
All right. And how much is the LC500 now?
That's a good question because I did not look at that. I should have. I'm gonna have to. I didn't pull the Monroney on it before I did. I think we're looking at this is the 500, not the 500H, and it's a coupe and not the convertible. So we're looking at about 100,000 for this one.
I assume you've driven the hybrid before, right?
Yes.
Which would you rather have, the hybrid or this one?
I think this one. There is some fuel economy improvement, and there's a little bit more power in the hybrid because of the mixed powertrain. But I do still like the sound of that V8. And Lexus hybrids are a little bit quieter than Toyota hybrids, but only a little bit. And while Toyota hybrids are really great and Lexus hybrids are really great for fuel economy, they get a little grumbly, noisy, and that kind of bothers me. And I was really just enjoying the V8 noises. So I mean, for me, this is the kind of car where if you get the best fuel economy you can get from that particular powertrain setup, it's where you need to be. I don't think that if you're picking up this big, huge coupe Grand Tourer, raw fuel economy isn't the primary concern.
Yeah, I mean, if you're spending $100,000, you can afford to spend a few extra bucks on gas.
Or you accept it. I don't,
Yeah.
I hesitate a little bit because sometimes we hear that a lot. If you can spend X on this, what's another couple more bucks? But people who can spend X on that partly do it because they're careful with what's going on with those other few bucks.
That's true. They tend not to be too profligate with their money.
Right. So, but still, I still think that for that one, I would prefer the V8 to the hybrid. But it depends. I mean, it depends on what kind of a driver you are too. I said I can see some owners preferring the hybrid and a little bit better fuel economy and a little bit extra power that it gets. But it does come with an extra cost. Yeah. And I kind of like the V8 sound better. And at the end of the day, it's a Grand Touring coupe. So as we pointed out, it needs to be fast. But that's not its only mission.
So one of the things that's always kind of irritated me about cars like this, though, is that it has a back seat. Right. But the back seat is completely useless. Why, if you're going to design a car like this, why even bother with, all the extra structure you need for, to support the seat belts and have the back seat in there? Why not just put, a really nicely upholstered package shelf back there? You could put a couple more bags in there, that you can't fit in the trunk, for a weekend getaway.
Like a little chest.
Why do you bother with a back seat in a car like that?
Like a little chest to put things in. That's what they should. Like, you open it up, you throw your stuff in there, you close it, and it doesn't slide around. Because this is the kind of car you're going to be driving, vigorously, and you have stuff flying around your cabin. Put a little chest back there, like a hook chest.
The answer is still, I think today, insurance.
Oh, boo!
Insurance rates jump up for a 2-seater.
Yeah,
which doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, especially when you've got a 2-seater that, or even if you've got a 4-seater that is only ever used as a 2-seater. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It seems like the insurance industry needs to take another look at stuff like this.
Yeah, that's probably true for sure.
I mean, all it's doing is adding extra weight to the thing.
Yeah. We were talking about Mustang, and I'll throw one thing in there and then get to the Mustang. But the LC500 coupe, because the car is so much bigger, actually has a more usable back seat than, for example, our 2002 Audi TT doesn't really have. I've done it once. I have to sit sideways. It's not advisable.
Yeah.
But at any rate, that's also one of the things that one of the reasons. Let's transition to Mustang. Here's a nice one. One of the reasons Mustang has done well for as long as it has, and consistently, because it has a back seat that's a little bit more usable. They've always made sure that package, and granted, it's not as usable as a sedan or utility, but it's a little bit more usable, and that's been a strength of Mustang for its whole history.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been a 2+2 that while you wouldn't want to spend a lot of time in the back seat, you can. you can fit a couple of people back there. You couldn't fit a couple of Robbies back there. I mean,
No.
he's.
I mean, if you cut me in half and like put one, like laid both sides down, maybe like stack me like wood, then I think it'd be fine.
But certainly you can put kids back there, which you really can't do with the LC, with something like the LC. I mean, there's literally zero leg room for unless your driver is about as tall as Jill Ciminillo, and Jill is just shy of 5 feet tall. There's nowhere to put your feet in the LC. All right, so let's come back to the Mustang in a bit. Robbie, what have you been driving?
I was driving a fine little economy crossover called the Lamborghini Urus Performante. It's a something, and I feel like I keep just sliding into a Mario from Super Mario Brothers accent whenever I talk about this car. So I'm going to try not to do that. I'm not going to say it's a me while I'm driving it around or talking about it. So let's just get that out of the way right now. So I've driven the Urus before on a track, the regular Urus.
Such as it is.
The Urus is Lamborghini's sport utility vehicle, their SUV. It's the number one selling Lamborghini ever. They sell these things. These things they're printing money for Lamborghini. I'm sure there are people out there who are just angry at the world because Lamborghini built this car and it's out there in the world. But like Porsche, you should, if you're one of those purists, you should be happy that this vehicle is out there, because this vehicle allows them to make all the insane Huracan like variants they want, like whereas the Macan and the Cayenne allow Porsche to make a 911 variant for every single owner. Every single owner gets their very own variant of 911 at this point. So this is the Performante. This is the high performance version of a high performance vehicle. I actually drove the Huracan Performante like 2 weeks earlier or 3 weeks earlier, and the differences are, well, I really like that Huracan Performante. It's fun to drive around. It's a Lamborghini. People look at it, want to take pictures. It's it's your 13-year-old, in your room with the however old, whatever your age is, the Countach, the Diablo, the whatever in your on your wall. So this is that car, and you're driving in real life as a person. That said, after 4 hours behind the wheel of that car, my spine was a little because it's essentially a track car. It's track, but it's also for the road. But you can really feel the track car of that Huracan, and it does kind of like smash your spine around after a while. Meanwhile, the Urus Performante, I mean, I guess you could take it on a track. It's got nice track wheels, but I could ride that thing to New York and back and totally be fine and comfortable. It's so that's the difference, and that's what I think what sells the Urus really is that people want that they want the Lamborghini, but they also have children or friends. They want to take their friends to Las Vegas with them over the weekend. You can't do that in the Huracan. You can do that in the Urus. The Performante, of course, more powerful. It has a spine snapping 657 horsepower, 627 pound-feet of torque from a 32 valve V8, 0 to 60 in about 2.8 seconds. It's quick. It's not a slow car. It's but you're also sitting pretty high, so it's quick, and you're lording over everyone as you're driving around. So you got that going for you if you're really into it. There's plenty of room for people in the front and back seats. I found all the seats to be comfortable. It does have that Alcantara. I always say it wrong. That fuzz. Alcantara. Which I'm totally fine with everywhere else in the vehicle. You want to put it on the headliner, fine. You want to put it on the dash, fine. You want to put it in. I do not like it on the steering wheel. I can't. I don't like the texture. Just give me like a leather steering wheel or a wood steering wheel or pleather or something made out of some sort of crap plastic or something else. Anything, but I just don't. I cannot. Yeah. It just feels weird. It feels slick, and it makes me uncomfortable because I don't like the idea of a slick texture on the steering wheel of a car. And
It's funny that you describe it that way as slick, because it's really kind of meant to be the opposite. To give you more texture, more grip. Leather is more
leather's far more
smooth.
slick.
Yeah, this feels weird. It's like you're touching like a chinchilla or something. I don't. Yeah, I know. No. I do not like it. Comfortable inside and out. And if comfort means you like everyone coming up to you everywhere you go. A lot of children stopped me while I was driving this vehicle, which I wasn't really anticipating, because it doesn't look like the stereotypical Lamborghini. I thought it would, maybe one or two people noticed it. I had a kid chase me down on his bicycle. I had another kid who's like, "Oh my!" And they're always, "Is this your car? This is a cool car." And I always have to give the whole spiel, like, "No, it's not my car. I'm not rich." I just yeah, sure, it's my car. I'm a rich guy. But no, it got a lot of attention, more so than I anticipated, which I think just goes to show that Lamborghini was able to market this and get this out there in a way that still, for a new generation, still gives them the Lamborghini feels that we had as kids when we saw the Countach and Diablo. And so you're still going to get people coming up to you if that's the kind of person you are. The Urus, the BMW XM, the G-Wagon, these are all vehicles you buy because you want people to look at you. You want to be noticed. You want, performance, but mostly you just want people looking at you. And that's going to happen with this vehicle. Cost, it's not inexpensive. So the base price is $260,000. There's a couple other numbers after that, but once you hit 260, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
those matters don't. Those numbers,
rounding error.
Yeah, the most expensive option for this vehicle was the gray, paint job. It's a nice gray, but it's gray. $13,000 for paint.
Oof.
That's more than my first 3 cars combined.
Actually, I think that's still cheaper than the paint job that was on the Maserati Levante I drove last summer. That one I think was like $15,000.
Wow. Yeah. The bonnet with the visible carbon. So there's carbon fiber all over the place. The hood, as we say in America, right in the middle of it, just a big slab of carbon. $6,000.
Ooh.
It's actually, for a car package, not
just
that.
Slap it on there.
Yeah.
That's just the bonnet. The roof.
Oh, that's just the hood. Okay.
The roof. If you want the shiny carbon on the roof, that's $7,300. So you're paying for every single, hey, you want to throw some carbon there? All right, let me check it off. It's like it's
a la carte carbon then.
Yeah, it's a la carte. It's like you buy a burger and then you're like, you want fries? Okay, find fries. Oh, you want a milkshake? Oh, let me add that. Oh, you want curly fries too? Let me add that.
Yeah.
Grand total for the vehicle with the $1,300 gas guzzler tax, $333,972. So if you want people to see you and you want to go really fast, it's not going to be cheap. It has actually, for a big V8, 16 miles per gallon combined.
That's not bad.
That's pretty good. To be honest, it's not great.
Yeah.
It's not great. I think I was getting, 14.
I would say we weren't doing better. We probably weren't doing better than that in the Mustangs this week.
Yeah, I wasn't. I didn't get that. It's 19 highway, 14 city. So yeah, so it's pretty good. You're driving around, you're driving to work in your Performante, Urus Performante. See, the power move is you get the Urus Performante and then you just get a Prius. Take the Performantes for the weekend. Prius. It's like you have it's like a mullet for your life. Like business in front, which is the Prius, party in the back, which is your Performante.
You're spending $333,000. The other ones that your feel good feel good for the Earth car is a Tesla.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you just balance it out, I'm balancing it out. Most of the time, I'm driving the Prius, or you get like a Mach-E, really just because apparently those things are like they're just giving them away according to a couple of news sites. So that was the Lamborghini Urus Performante. I think people have been asking us a lot about how we feel about driving these types of vehicles, and with the Huracan, I was a lot more concerned about driving it around. I don't know why, because the Performante is like just as expensive, but for some reason, I didn't have that extra anxiety that you have when you have a supercar.
Well, I think, with the Urus, you're less likely to be scraping off some of that carbon, on the front every time you pull into a driveway.
Oh man, don't even get me started on that stuff.
Things like that. Or when you hit potholes,
turn into little. Where's the camera? There's a lot of when you're driving these cars, especially the very low performance vehicles, when you're pulling in the parking spots, you're looking for that camera button. So you make sure that you're not sticking out, and B, you're not going to hit the curb and just ruin your week.
Right.
And you definitely don't want to return something like this with a little curb rash on the wheels.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. I have a whole story about curb rash. I'll tell another day.
All right.
But the magic of is what you hit on though. It's you can have the supercar, but you can still put your kids in the back, and
you can park. It's got off-road mode. Boop.
And it is, and Porsche was right to start doing that, and I think that we're going to talk about some other stuff that we talk about, kind of the outrage, the social media outrage, or letters to the editor back in the day. It doesn't change the basics. If you are a 911 purist and you want a 911, you probably did still buy one. Even if you thought it was not great that they made a Macan and a Cayenne, you might not have bought it, but you probably still did. But a lot of people who weren't willing to buy a 911 because they were concerned about their kids or whatever, or needed to do a little bit more, are like, wait a second, whoa, I can get both.
And they handle so well for SUVs. Those Macans, the Macan, the Cayenne, and the Urus, they all handle way better than they should. They turns out those people at Lamborghini and Porsche, those chassis folks, they know what they're doing.
Well, and I think at least between the Cayenne and the Urus, there's also a lot of shared elements to those vehicles. They're on the same platform.
Yeah.
So
well, and we talk about the price, and maybe it doesn't need to be $330,000 to get there, but still, you get different equipment. You spend more money, you've got more time, you've got more components, you can work with in the chassis in terms of what are those suspension bits. Is it the high performance suspension bit that costs a little bit more? I mean, there is something to spending the money. It's not just the badge on it. There's something behind the badge.
Yeah. I remember a lot of people like, well, I wouldn't pay that money for a Porsche. I'm like, the first time you get in any Porsche and you drive it, you're going to understand where that money's going. You're just going to know. You don't have to go 0 to 60. You don't have to just go around a corner, and you're like, oh, I understand.
Yeah.
Still, that person who said it may still not buy it, but
you might not be able to afford it like me, but you can.
Smartphones have gotten way more expensive over the past decade, and all it takes is one impact on a hard floor to make you wish you had spent a few bucks to put a case on it. Going online without ExpressVPN is like not having a case for your phone, and it only costs a few dollars a month. Nicole, Robbie, and I travel a lot for our work, and we spend a lot of time in hotels, coffee shops, airplanes, and of course the Delta Sky Club. Connecting to the Wi-Fi in any public places with shared Wi-Fi puts your data at risk because bad actors could be intercepting what you send and using it to steal from you. It only takes some cheap hardware to intercept Wi-Fi data, and even a smart preteen can do it. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per victim selling personal information on the dark web. ExpressVPN stops the bad guys by creating a secure, encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. ExpressVPN uses state-of-the-art encryption that would take a supercomputer up to 1 billion years to crack. I have ExpressVPN on all my devices, including a MacBook Pro, Windows laptops and desktops, and Android and iOS phones and laptops, or tablets. When I want to be secure, I just launched the app, click once to connect, and my data is secure. As I said, I travel a lot for my work, and I have to connect to countless public Wi-Fi networks in many countries. I have ExpressVPN on all my connected devices so that whoever else is on the same network can't see any of my data. That's important because I often have to check banks, credit card accounts, and transmit client data that might be sensitive, as well as filing articles on news that might be under embargo. ExpressVPN protects all of it, and I've been paying for my own account for years. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. That's expressvpn.com/wheelbearings, and you can get an extra 4 months for free. expressvpn.com/wheelbearings.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to leave up holiday decorations year-round. Others have the need to use their garage as practice space for their new metal band. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.
Did you know you can support Wheel Bearings directly? Head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia and you can become a patron today. Your contributions will help fund the platforms and tools we use to bring the podcast to you. And exclusives and improvements are already on the way thanks to your generosity. So if you want to be part of an automotive podcast like no other, head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia. We've updated the Wheel Bearings merch store, and now there's a whole bunch of new choices, new colors, new styles, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, hats, mugs, travel mugs, stickers, aprons, tote bags, you name it. You can get your Wheel Bearings merch at shop.wheelbearings.media. Go check it out. That's shop.wheelbearings.media. All right. Well, I had something that was not quite as thrilling as either of you. I just had a Corolla, somewhat rare version of the Corolla. It was the GR Corolla Morizo edition, of which
so jealous.
which are only 200 for the U.S. market, and the one I had, the tag on the end of the dashboard said it was number 166 out of 200, So this is, the GR Corolla. I think Nicole had one once before. But she had the regular version, the Core. And there's actually one of my neighbors here in down the block. Actually, a few months ago, got a GR Corolla Core, which is the base version of it, which I think starts around $36,000. And there's also the Circuit Edition, which is $42,900. The Morizo is a little bit different. Morizo is the name that Akio Toyota uses when he's racing. That's his nickname. And so this is named for him. Akio is the now former CEO, chairman of Toyota. And when he became CEO or president of Toyota back about 2010 or 11, I think it was, he kind of revitalized the company, and he revitalized product development of the company, kind of moving them in a different direction, trying to make, let's make more interesting cars. Let's make cars that are actually fun to drive. And if you drove Toyotas from 2010 and drove Toyotas today, they are definitely vastly better cars than they were, including the Corolla. The GR Corolla is Toyota's answer to the likes of the VW Golf R and the Civic Type R. It's the high performance version. It's all wheel drive. It's the hatchback. It has a 1.6 liter 3-cylinder that's turbocharged to 300 horsepower. And In the regular GR Corolla, it makes a mere 273 foot-pounds of torque. In the Morizo, you get the same 300 horsepower, but you get 295 foot-pounds of torque. They retuned it a little bit. They also took about 100 pounds of weight out of it compared to the Circuit Edition by ditching the rear seats.
Yeah.
They got rid of the rear windshield wiper, rear window wiper on the hatch, which can be a little problematic if it's raining. But then again, on the Michelin Pilot Cup Sport 2 or Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 tires, you probably don't want to be driving that in the rain too much anyway. There's not a lot of tread depth in those, especially after it's been through a few different journalists. But even when they're fresh, they don't have a whole lot of tread for getting the water out of the way. As part of the weight savings, they figured, well, if we don't have a rear seat, then we don't really need to be able to roll the rear windows down. So let's get rid of the rear window regulators. So the rear windows don't go down either. You can actually open the rear doors, but you just can't put the windows down. And then they added a couple of extra braces in the back to stiffen up the rear structure. So what they say is, it's got enough room in the back that for track days you can fit four more wheels and tires in there, and you probably could. I'm pretty sure you could fit a full extra set of wheels and tires in there to take to the track, swap those on, so you could have a set of actual slicks instead of almost slicks to drive on the track.
Mostly slicks.
And so the Morizo comes in at $49,900. The one that I had came in at a total, including delivery charge, of $52,063. It had it had a special color, which was the wind chill pearl, which is a pearl white. It did have carpeted floor mats, and also the door sill protectors, and the frameless HomeLink mirror. So that bumped it up to almost $52,000. This thing is quick. It's not as fast as the Urus Performante, but it is a very quick Corolla.
It is a lot more fun than the Urus Performante.
Yeah, and especially on the road, I think it's quick, but not so ridiculously quick that you can't kind of explore, start to explore some of its limits on the road without getting into too much trouble. Unlike the Civic Type R, it does have all-wheel drive, and it's got the GR4 mode. So there's a rotary controller on the console. The default is it splits the torque 60% to the front, 40% to the rear. You twist that knob and it goes to 30-70. So it has a more of a rear drive flavor to it. One of the things with taking all that stuff out of the back end of the car, they did add a couple of extra braces, like I said, to stiffen it up, but they left out, some of the noise matting and things like that. So you hear a lot more in the Morizo than you do in a standard Corolla, GR Corolla. Like, for example, if you're driving on a road where, the pavement's a little broken, there's some sand or like light gravel, things like that, you hear all of that stuff bouncing off the floor pan as you're driving down the road. It's a little noisy. If you want a GR Corolla to just use as a daily driver and you don't plan to take it to a track, don't bother trying to get the Morizo.
No, that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Get the Core or even the Circuit Edition. They're cheaper, and it's going to be less annoying as a daily driver.
Well,
but if you do plan to track it, then the Morizo is a great choice.
It is. It's very purpose built. It's very purpose delivered, and 200.
Yeah,
that's all.
Yeah.
It's
chances of finding one are pretty slim anyway. So
right.
They're all gone.
Yeah.
The conversation about daily driver really, to my mind, isn't super relevant because somebody who buys this bought it for a specific purpose, and it really wasn't daily driver, which is a little bit of a conundrum given that
they took the seats out. You can put more stuff from Target in it.
Yeah.
Theoretically aimed at a younger buyer who's maybe not going to be able to afford two cars or whatever. But it's such a purpose-built vehicle, and it shows though what Toyota can do in terms of making something fun to drive, and in terms of throwing the engineering into it and being able to hold their own in that space. And I think that's where it gets to be important for Toyota in terms of image and just sort of existing more so than how many. And of course, I mean, they have a clue. They know this isn't this is going to be a limited, and keeping it 200 probably ensures they sell every one of them, and the residuals stay high, and it's a nice little thing. More people will buy Circuit and Core for sure. I've driven them. I drove them on the media drive. I think we had one at home yet. And they're a lot of fun. They are a lot of fun, and I give them points too for having the all-wheel drive system. As much as the Type R is nice, the all-wheel drive system I think is clever, and they did, like you pointed out, the knob for turning it. It is an interesting way to handle that too. But I think that does make torque steer a little bit better in that setup than you would have in the Type R. So I think it's a good move for them overall.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, and that engine, yeah, I have become a fan of small turbocharged 3-cylinder engines over the last decade. I love the kind of growl that they make, which is distinctly different from a 4-cylinder or a 6. And in this case, because you've got 3 exhaust outlets, one for each cylinder, it's got kind of a distinctive sound to it, and it is a hoot to drive. And it's shockingly torquey for such a small engine, very responsive. Doesn't really feel like there's any noticeable turbo lag from it. It's really well done, and I think I could probably be very happy with a Core or a Circuit. I know my neighbor is very, very happy with his. He had been looking for one, and the local Toyota dealer got one in. Somebody else had ordered it and then decided to cancel it. And so he called him and said, "Hey, I've got this GR Corolla. Do you want it?" And he was there the same day getting it. And, I saw him a couple of days after he picked it up. He loves it. It's a fantastic little car.
That's how all of the GR Corollas should be sold. Just, there is an appetite out there for people who really want them, and they are clever and they're cute and they're fun. I'd probably spec out a Circuit if I was specing one.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I like about the current generation Corolla, both the hatch and the sedan, is when you look at the belt line, actually slopes down and curves down quite a bit right near the front. So you actually have a lot better visibility out of these things than you do out of most cars these days to the forward corners, because you've got that little dip down, kind of like what Ford does on the F-150s, on the F-Series pickups, with that cutout below the mirrors, so you can see the corner areas. And when you're driving quickly on a curvy road, being able to glance over and see the corners a little better, just even if it's just a little bit, is a big help.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're going to take it to an autocross, then it really helps, to know exactly where those cones are.
It's fantastic. I love driving that car. It wasn't the version you have. I had just the regular one.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I cannot say enough wonderful things about the GR Corolla. If you're,
and it's interesting. I don't know how many more Corollas it'll help them sell, but I think it does still speak to, anytime you can put an engineering project like that together, I think it helps the whole line.
I think it helps, even if it doesn't necessarily sell many more Corollas, just to know, for, even enthusiasts, need to have regular cars to drive. And, if you know that the company you're buying from, cares enough to build something like that they're probably going to put a little bit of extra care into everything they build. And, so that I think, it's, for me, I would be much more inclined to buy a Toyota today than I was 10 years ago, just because of some of these kinds of cars that they've built, the 86, the GR Corollas, even the Supra. And it makes a difference, I think.
And the Supra and 86 are on their second generations too.
Mhm.
So they've made a multiple year commitment to those, in spite of sports car sales not doing what they once were.
Yeah.
So it's not about the volume, and the partnerships certainly helped with the 86 and the Supra. But you're right, like it all adds up to presenting a company that cares about how it feels. I'm not sure how much it translates as well to all of them just yet. I think that's one of the areas they still need to work on. Toyotas are a little bit more fun than they used to be, but they're still pretty heavy. And so I think maybe translating some of that language into the other vehicles can still, a little bit more work could still be done in that way. But it sets up the company for where they want to be. And it's a nice blend with all the hybrids. And yeah, let's not go too deep into the electric conversation, but they have always cared about fuel economy, and they have always cared about that match. So it's an interesting little space to be in, reminding with one of the companies that's still sticking around and talking about performance at a more consistent level than some of the others.
Yeah, and the GR Corolla is rated at 21 city, 28 highway, 24 combined. I averaged about 26. So I'm quite happy with it.
See, it's the all-around perfect car.
Yeah.
If you're into that sort of thing.
If you want to hear rocks coming up, hitting your
I am
floor.
totally fine with rocks smacking the pan. I don't get the whole time I was behind the wheel of that car. I was like, well, this is the best thing that's ever happened. That the GR86 is like, okay, this is a nicer version, like Rick Ride.
Oh, and like your Urus Performante, the GR Corolla had a carbon fiber roof.
Boom! It didn't cost the but you could
cost a fraction of what that Lamborghini cost.
Well, the Lamborghini's bigger, and that carbon fiber's got to come all the way from Italy.
Okay.
They have a man who lives in a small village who just makes carbon fiber.
He weaves the mats by hand.
Yeah, his name is Mario.
Does he do plumbing on the side?
He does. He does it for stars.
All right.
And gold coins.
All right, let's move along. So this week, Stephanie, you and I got to drive the 2024 Mustang, which, according to Ford, is all new. I actually classify it as mostly new.
Yeah, me too. Mostly new.
Yeah. So we got to drive the EcoBoost. We got to drive the GT. No Dark Horse yet. That's coming later. What did you think?
It's a really refined version of the same formula. I mean, well, not refined in the sense that it's less raw. I mean, you still have that element to it. Visually, I think that it looks really good. I really like the way that they've worked with the design on this one. I spent more time in the convertible, and both in the EcoBoost and the GT this time round, and it was just lovely. Top down on the canyons for a couple of hours. I didn't have a co-driver with me at that point, so just chilling and driving and doing exactly what Mustangs could do. It's perfect. It's a perfect execution of what a Mustang should be. When we're talking about cars that are very specific to a buyer's taste right now, from Mustang, from to Urus, to GR Corolla, to even LC500. So it's really cool to still have these vehicles in existence when, of course, sales are dominated by utility vehicles, which you could fill in the blank. But I liked a lot of that. The new infotainment system is a lot stronger. The Unreal Engine graphics are amazing. That it is pretty cool. I guess I don't game enough, so I don't know how many. I don't know that knowing that it's done by Unreal Engine didn't matter that much to me because I'm not a gamer, but the result is just really neat graphics, and it'll be interesting as Ford pushes over their updates over time. Hope whether or not it's a subscription thing or not, but being able to update, in theory, they could be able to update those graphics over time. I don't know exactly how you want to change them, but they do, and it's more or less common in the industry right now. But you change your track mode, and you've got different colors, and you've got the car spinning and doing great things, and the infotainment and the center stack actually that really tell you what to expect out of that mode. So I like that a lot of it as well.
Yeah, I enjoyed driving the car a lot. I guess I'm a little less enthusiastic about the styling this time compared to the S550, the previous generation. Yeah, it's a lot sharper lines. I think when I went to the original Backgrounder last August, a few weeks before they unveiled it publicly, talking to the designers, then one of the things they talked about was the last time with the S550, that was the first generation where they were taking the car global and making it available everywhere in the world. And they went with a little bit more of a European styling direction with it while maintaining, the Mustang visual DNA. And this time they decided to go back to a more traditionally American muscle car look. It's good, but I think if I had to choose between the design of this one versus the last one, I would probably go with the last one. But again, that's personal preference. It's not to the point where I would not buy this car just because of the way it looks. The one thing that, to me at least, kind of turns me off more though is that big screen. The way they've done the infotainment system. You've got on the base models, they've actually got it as two separate displays. But on the premium trims, it's all within one housing that's curves around you, and the infotainment screen is kind of tilted slightly towards the driver. I think it's a 13.5-inch display and like 12.5 for the cluster. Again, the Unreal graphics look pretty cool, but does it actually add anything functionally? It's kind of a gimmick. How often am I going to be sitting there swiping on the screen and twirling the car around to as I'm changing the settings? And that's the kind of thing you can do with Unreal, because it's all modeled in 3D and it's rendering all those animations in real time. Whereas in the past, the animations would always be pre-rendered. So now it's rendering it in real time. I guess I'm old. I'm the target market that would have been buying Mustangs for the last, 30, 40, 50 years. And I did. What they're going for now is to try to engage younger buyers, Gen Z, millennials. I don't know. Do you think that a 30-year-old is going to be more inclined to buy a Mustang now because it's got, these cool graphics and everything?
I don't know that they're more inclined to buy it. Again, I'm not a gamer, so I have a hard time kind of deciding this. This is all super important. But having said that, like any car we get into these days has interesting graphics. And so you can't not have it. Did it have to go to the level of Unreal Engine and level that it is? Maybe not. And I do feel like it's something that after you've driven it for a year or so, you're like, okay, it's pretty, but whatever. Like I'm there. I know it. I see it. You're done showing all of your friends, unless you're getting new friends every month who haven't seen it. You've shown everybody you can show about it. So I don't know that it has like long-term ownership value in that sense. And they can kind of be like, all right, but if you don't do something, you're certainly going to look dated in terms of just what's available out there and what's happening. And you don't want this car to look dated. At the same time, you need to sort of respect heritage and respect everything else, but you don't want it to be looking dated next to anything else. And so I think that's part of it. I wasn't and liking the graphics in the center cluster, the infotainment system itself. Like I said, I drove around by myself for the Canyons for a while. I didn't change the radio station because I just didn't want to screw around trying to figure out or swiping left and right or whatever to get to the next Sirius XM station. And I don't tend to talk to cars myself. and certainly the roof was down. So I didn't even try to change the station by Sirius, and I haven't remembered all those stations yet anyway. But I did find that the level of touch stuff can be a little distracting, especially for a car that you just want to go drive. That it looks good, but as we've kind of talked about offline before, the confluence of touchscreen versus buttons is still something that automakers are working through. And this one works really fast, but it still requires you to do a lot more stuff by touch than I necessarily would have liked. But it's hard. I keep trying to put my head in the same of a 25 or 30-year-old. I can't quite get there.
Yeah.
I think they are perceiving it a little bit differently. And they referred to it in the presentation of, we want to get to the guy who's been driving these cars on like the gaming system for a while and have them feel like that. And I'm like, okay. I thought that's not wrong to say and not wrong to think about, but I'm still not necessarily in that space. But eventually we're not going to be buying cars, and I'm probably not buying a Mustang next. So they need to be talking to somebody else.
Yeah.
I know that the tech world, that's mostly where I write for, they really care more about latency. I mean, they see the Unreal Engine. They're like, okay, well, it's not going to have latency, but then you get into the Hummer EV, and that's just a latent. You push a button and you got to wait like a few seconds for it to load, and you're like, well, this isn't the Unreal Engine we were promised. That's their concern. Is like they're used to you pick up your phone, you do a thing, it happens automatically. That's really where what they're thinking about is they want things just to work quickly because they've become accustomed to their home computer system, especially when you're talking about gaming. If they're hardcore gamers, these are people who are making sure that things work quickly. And if you're putting graphics over speed, then you're making a mistake.
I don't know, Sam. I felt like it was pretty quick, but I wasn't timing.
Yeah, it was. It was
as long
responsive.
As long as it's responsive, that's like the main goal. They're like, oh, this looks cool. My phone did this 5 years ago, whatever. Like, I just want to be able to push things and then they happen.
I feel like this did.
One thing that I can live with the graphics, and even the screen. One thing that I did find annoying in the interior, actually two things annoying in the interior. One, they made the switch from having physical climate controls to moving everything onto the touchscreen. It's all there permanently in a bar across the bottom of the screen. So it's you don't, if you need to change the temperature or anything, you don't have to go searching through menus. It's there permanently displayed, but you do have to look at it to do that. And then the other thing, we were talking last week, and there was also some discussion in the Discord this week about that little panel of control switches in the Lincoln Corsair, where it was one piece covering like 5 or 6 switches.
Hate that panel.
They have the exact same thing in the Mustang.
See, now last time they had those stupid fake plastic like switches that only went one direction.
Toggle switches.
The toggles, and they felt plastic. They didn't feel solid like they do in the Mini. And so I just didn't. I'm like, make these feel real. Don't make them feel like a Fisher Price toy. And they replaced that with something worse. Oh, Ford.
But driving the cars, both the EcoBoost on the first day and then the GT on the second day, I felt they drove great. The biggest thing that they changed this year from a dynamic standpoint is the steering. It's got a new steering rack and the joint in the steering column. And I'm trying to remember exactly how he described it, but basically there's a lot less compliance in that joint in the steering column. And they, so much so that they were able to also remove a bushing in the steering column to further reduce the compliance. So you get better, more direct steering feel. And, when you're driving on those curvy roads, the first day was, and the EcoBoost was San Gabriel Canyon. And then the next day, Angeles Forest. The steering definitely feels better than it did before. Definitely feels very precise. And I thought that the handling was very predictable, very progressive. Especially in the GT, the EcoBoost we drove on the first day had the Pirelli P0s, the summer tires. The first GT I drove on the second day, also convertible, had the Conti all season tires on there, all season performance tires, which despite being all season, they had surprisingly good grip. But I think for average drivers, I thought they were really good because as they start to slip, you can hear it as it starts to slip a little bit sideways. And so that it gives you that audible feedback. And then you also get the feedback through the steering, and you can easily adjust the attitude of the car with the throttle and the brake. You just back off the throttle a little bit, get that little bit of weight transfer, it turns in a little bit more. And it was really easy to drive. It's not going to do anything silly, and bite you, as long as you're not doing anything really stupid. If you're just approaching the limits, you can find those limits and stay within them quite easily with this car. So I think for most drivers, it's a really good option. What do you think, Steph?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I guess that's where I kind of went to sort of the refining the formula, because it did feel very much like a Mustang, a little bit better in the steering and some of these things we're talking about. But it felt very much predictable, like I would expect a Mustang to feel. It didn't feel like they were trying to change anything about what you expect when you get behind the wheel of that car, and they don't need to. It's certainly a segment almost of its own right now.
Yeah, it almost literally is, because the Camaro goes away at the beginning of next year. The Challenger goes away at the end of this year. So it really is kind of in a segment of its own now.
How was the transmission? Because I think that was the on the GTs was the transmission that got wasn't it recalled? I just know the Tremec is amazing, and the one below it, the GT, is fine.
I was in the 10-speed. It was fine. Unfortunately, I did not have time in the manual.
Oh, they have such a great clutch. I really love the clutch. I like going to the Ford guys. I'm like, I really like your clutch, and they're like, oh, they get all excited. I'm like, I can't write about this. No one cares about clutches but me.
You do when they're good.
The EcoBoost this year, there's no more manual available with the EcoBoost.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Because they were selling like low
no one's buying
percentage
those.
rates.
Yeah. They're buying the GT.
You can get the manual with the GT, and it's about 30% take rate on the GT with the manual.
That's good.
Yeah, and the GT has the same Getrag gearbox that was on the last generation. The Dark Horse gets the Tremec.
Yeah,
and the nice thing with the GT, it's got so much torque with that 5 liter that getting up in those canyon roads, basically you just put it in third gear and go, and you never really have to shift it in that kind of scenario. You can easily go between 40 and a much higher speed. It's got a 7,500 RPM red line,
40 and up to the speed limit.
Yes. And never really have to shift it, and you can just focus on just driving. And I thought that was a lot of fun. That was really good. But even when you do shift it, the shift action was fine. I had no issues with it. Steph, you didn't get a chance to try the electronic drift brake, did you?
I did not try the drift brake. I did the autocross, and then I went on some on-road driving, and did not do the drift.
So it has a is it a physical or is it electronic? Like what's
Yes.
going on with the brake?
Yes.
With the handbrake.
So it looks like a traditional handbrake lever, but the S650 has an electronic park brake system.
Okay.
If you don't get the performance package, if you get any Mustang without the performance package, you get just the same kind of electronic park brake that you find on most new cars today, where it looks like a window switch. It's just a little switch. You pull it up, with your foot on the brake, it applies the brakes electronically. With the if you get performance package, you get a handle that looks like that, but it's actuating the electronic park brake.
Oh,
but the thing is, it actually does it faster than a mechanical park brake would. It's like less than 100 milliseconds. So you get less latency. And
you don't have that analog adjusted. You can feel like, oh, I need a little bit more. I need a little less. All right. Maybe I'm just weird.
Well, it's
again, this is for a 0.05% like owner.
Exactly. and this is something that you should probably never be using on the street. I mean, there's this stereotype, and you look on Twitter or YouTube and, Instagram, and you always see these bozos, pulling out of Cars and Coffee in their Mustang GTs and then hitting the accelerator and spinning the thing off into a curb or
slamming into a ditch.
Yeah.
They've never done it before. Don't do that.
And under normal circumstances, if you don't use that electronic park brake, this new one, will generally avoid those kinds of situations. But if you pull that lever, you will easily get yourself into that kind of position and spin the thing around.
They shouldn't give it to him at all.
Probably not. But if you're going to go drifting, on a track, this is something you should only be doing on a track. It's good to be
flicking anyway.
Yeah. It's very responsive. So as soon as you do it, it reacts, so you lift off the accelerator, pull the handle, and locks those rears up, and it'll turn whichever way the wheels are turned, and you can get it around, and then immediately go back down, and it releases. So, and that's probably the bigger thing, is more so the release than the actuation, because it releases just as fast as it actuates. Cool. And so it's much more responsive. So if you're gonna do that, it works better
on a track.
Yes, on a track only.
And also learn how to do a flick.
Yeah.
Left, right, left.
I'm curious, because then the one thing that I was really it was unfortunate I didn't get to check the drifting out was in the presentation. They were talking about the graphics and the communications from the Unreal Engine, sort of teaching people how to drift better. Did you experience that?
I didn't really play with. I mean, we didn't have very much time to do the drifting. We only had a couple of, I think like three laps around the drift course to do that. And I was paying. They had some guys there from RTR Vehicles, Von Gitten's company, that were coaching us on how to do it. So I was paying more attention to what they were saying than any of the graphics stuff. I basically just ignored the graphics stuff.
Yeah. I was curious about that, because it does fall in line with a lot. When you look at the truck and some of the other things that Ford is making an effort in trying to put technology in that can help somebody who doesn't already know how to do something learn how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I did find that to be an interesting alignment with what they're already doing. So
yeah, like the trailer hitch assist and things like that.
I guess recognizing that they're still trying to get to younger buyers who maybe didn't grow up with sports cars or pickup trucks, or certainly haven't paid attention to an e-brake in the last decade. If you learn to drive and just in the last 5 or 10 years, is that a big priority? Maybe not. So, but they may be curious.
But I mean, drifting, is popular, particularly more among younger
with the kids.
Sports fans.
The kids love the drifting.
Yeah. So again, that's something that is probably going to appeal more to a younger buyer than the traditional old Mustang buyer.
I just want to go fast in a straight line.
Yeah. And then the other thing, of course, with Mustang, as with everything else these days, is pricing. The thing with Mustang was always that it was fast, fun, and affordable. And affordability of cars in general has obviously become a problem. But as I was writing stuff up on this, I was looking, when I graduated in 1990, I bought myself a 5-liter LX Mustang that had 225 horsepower, which is 90 less than this 4-cylinder EcoBoost, and had less torque than that EcoBoost engine. And I paid $13,000 for that car. And the EcoBoost Coupe starts at $30,000 now, or almost $31,000. And so I was thinking, that's a big price difference. But over that 33-year gap, I plugged in that $13,000 into the CP inflation calculator. It came out to just shy of $30,000 anyway. It's like $29,800. So the price, the starting price is actually for a similar level of performance is actually almost the same as it was 30 years ago.
But I'm always curious about those because are we inflation as things cost or inflation as how much people make? Because what people make is less than before.
Yeah, well, that's
you go into inflation. So you look at
if you're looking at average salaries, average wages versus median, it's a big difference.
Yeah,
a lot of people, there's some people making a lot more money, and a lot of people not making that much more money.
Yeah. So Mustangs. Anyway, I love the last generation Mustang. I think is exactly what Ford needed to do. I'm excited to when I get my hands on this. Is the dark horse essentially just the Bullet?
More like midway between where Mach 1 and GT350 were.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
You got 480 horsepower in the GT, and 486 if you get the active exhaust system, and then it's going to be 500 horsepower for the dark horse, 418 foot-pounds of torque. So kind of splitting the difference between GT350, and with the Coyote's got a 7,500 RPM redline, and GT350 was 8,200. So it revs almost as high as the GT350 did.
That's the only Mustang from the last gen that I didn't drive was a GT350.
Oh,
I drove the 500. I drove the Bullet, and I was just like, I just want to drive the GT because the 500 doesn't have the manual transmission. It's a fun car, and we got to drive it on track and autocross it and blah blah blah. But I really wanted to drive the GT350, and now I'll never get to.
Yeah. The dark horse has got the same Tremec gearbox that was in the GT350 as well.
Nice. All right.
So, and I think it was also in the Mach 1. So
just go dark horse.
Just go dark horse. It'll be the same.
Yeah. Close enough.
Close enough. With drifting for the kids.
All right. Let's dive into a couple other things. Let's start off with something that came from your company, Steph. A survey on consumers' willingness to pay for subscriptions.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, let me find this one. So first of all, how do you feel about paying for connected car services?
Okay. This is clearly something we're going to be talking about for a very long time. And my personal behavior is to not really do that.
My personal behavior is no.
Are you saying that once you have paid off your car, you don't want to keep paying for it in perpetuity?
No, I didn't. The examples that I have, Sirius XM stays on the Miata as long as I talk them into the $5 a month. And when I don't, I say, okay, see you later. We have a Cadillac.
And they say, whoa, wait, don't go.
Yeah,
give it to you for $5 a month.
$5 a month.
we have a Cadillac ATS-V that sleeps in the wintertime. So I don't put Sirius on it because why would I put Sirius on it for 4 months? Whatever. I just don't bother because they won't give you the $5 for 4 months, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, well, you can just deactivate it. I'm like, no, this is too much hassle. Right? And OnStar, GM's OnStar system in general is a really good system. Like there's a ton of things you can do with it. I wasn't really doing that much with it. Again, with a car that goes to sleep for 4 months or 6 months out of the year, give or take. So when the OnStar subscription, the base expired, I called my husband who was driving the car that day and said, yeah, so if you crash, cops are coming for you.
You're going to be just found lying in a ditch 3 days later. Sorry.
You have to call 911 yourself.
Cars never crash. Well, we don't have that we're driving around. So there's I can see a lot of use cases where I may be more inclined to keep those kind of features on, but for what we do, I haven't really wanted to. So I'm a little bit awkward on that, and I don't have a bunch of streaming services because I get fussy, but I'm an anomaly apparently. And even our data is showing that people who they have it, they're renewing. The release that Sam's talking about is a study that we did, I think about 8,000 people globally. So yeah, 8,000, which is a pretty decent sized number in this
It's a good
thing.
number for a survey. A lot of
Yeah.
times, like 500 people, I'm like,
It was a global survey too, though, so it wasn't just the U.S.
No, yeah, and I mean, and I've looked at our surveys before, and that's a pretty big number even for us. So we had some good response out of that. So then they looked at 4,500 who had a free trial or an existing subscription on an earlier car, and globally, 82% said they would probably consider purchasing subscription-based services on the future and a new platform. I think at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is, does that subscription give you as a user a value that you care about? And the difficulty is every person has something else that's more valuable to them. And how much time are they in the car? All of those things come into play. The flip side of that from an OEM's perspective that I noticed, and there was a Ford presentation talking about subscriptions a few years ago now, and they didn't really say this was our target, but they really pointed out that, you know what, if 20% of the people who buy our car spend $20 a month with us, that's a whole lot of money.
Yeah,
that adds
And they
up.
don't need. So that was a really interesting. And they weren't saying that was the target per se, but they pointed out that the actual margin on the software once you got the hardware in place, and yes, it costs money to develop the software, but the margin on it can be pretty high. And when I start looking at it and thinking about it a little bit differently and thinking it's not necessary to have 95% of your people, 82% of your people, buy the full OnStar experience or buy all of the software services that are available in order to be profitable. When I start thinking about it that way, for me, it's a whole other equation. Again, outside of what I do, it doesn't really matter. So I think there's that opportunity there. The other part of it is everyone, the automakers who are heavy into this are laying the groundwork for something a few years later. And they talk and they hint at subscriptions and values and features and content that they can't deliver today that's going to more holistically appreciate in the car. I don't know what those are yet. I haven't seen them. They kind of talk like they don't know exactly what 100% of it is. They just see the possibility there. So maybe there is something that ultimately I'll be willing to pay for. So I think it's a wait and see a little bit. The magic is going to come down to the person. I have tired story probably a little bit. Sam's probably heard it, but we bought a dryer last summer that came with a subscription service. You think about it? No, not just. But I got really irritated because the dryer has 14 settings on the dryer. None of them do exactly what I wanted, but I could buy a subscription to figure out how to do exactly what I wanted. I'm like, the old dryer had a button that I pushed that did exactly what I wanted. So to me, it felt more complicated and silly. But that summer I was talking about this with someone else, and they had just purchased a grill, and they were like, you know what, this is awesome. Like, the subscription tells me exactly what temperature the meat is. I can have my outside parties. I can go talk to my friends, and I can go check on it. I don't have to be standing over the grill the entire time, and blah, blah, blah. He was super excited. So those are very different products, and a couple of things came out of it for me. One is whatever subscription service is in that car has to be something that some buyer says, this does it for me. This is exactly what I want to do. It answers a question for me. And the other thing is that every product you put into your house today, pretty close, has some sort of connection, some sort of potential service to come with it. So the competition for those subscription dollars is not just about the car. It's about subscription dollars everywhere. And that, I think, is going to be interesting to watch it all come to. And I think part of my reconciling that is going back to the fact that you don't have to have 100% of your buyers buying all of your features to be really profitable and to make a lot of money on it. That's why it can potentially still work, and find that bridge of delivering an actual value. Heated seats, charging for heated seats is not an actual value. And doing something that you can make some money at, and find that competition. I think there's more opportunity with GM deciding to go all Google, and several others are using Google built in. So GM's certainly not alone using Google built in, but that seems to marry some of the car information and technology that you couldn't do with your smartphone. So if you want navigation that actually does tell you about your fuel economy and your range, where you are, and in a much more precise manner, to me, it makes sense to tie those things together and do it that way. I also feel like part of the reason that smartphones got as popular as they did for navigation is because forever the onboard navigation sucked. If you didn't have the physical address and the time and the patience to spend 45 seconds telling it, retelling it, and retelling it doesn't believe you. I hate talking cars. Then
especially Volkswagen.
You just have your phone. You could just be like, whatever, before you get in the car, when you're in the car, hey Siri, or I don't talk to Siri either, but you can go McDonald's and Dearborn and you can get the right one you want. You can say, I need to go to Quick Park to pick somebody up and I want to know how long it's going to take. I don't have to know the address to Quick Park in order to do that. And so it was not, I don't think, as much that consumers were in love with their phones. It was that the embedded navigation system was a weak, poor experience by comparison. So if that in-car experience with all the technology, with the connected, with putting more computers into the car can deliver that, I think that people will be less upset about not using their phone than the Twitterverse would suggest.
Yeah. And, as you said, there's a number of vehicles now, including GM vehicles, that have Android Automotive with Google Automotive Services. And there's another survey that came out this week, which was from JD Power, their appeal study. And in that one, let's see, let me find it here now. They look at a variety of different things, and the name kind of kind of gives you an indication of basically that what this overall score is. What is the appeal of this car? And one of the things they found was that scores actually went down this year again, for I think the second time in the last couple of years. And a big frustration has been with the technology in vehicles. But interestingly, among looking at different infotainment systems, they found that the owners of vehicles that had Android Automotive infotainment systems with Google Automotive Services, so that means the Google Play Store, Google Maps, Google Assistant, those actually were the highest rated of all the infotainment systems, more so than the embedded systems from the automakers, or their native in-house developed systems, or the smartphone based systems. And GM has been rolling that out on their vehicles as they've updated their vehicles over the last couple of years. Ford's going to be launching it starting with the Lincoln Nautilus this later this year. The Volvo and Polestar have got it overseas. Renault is using this. And the other one that actually scored the worst was if they have Android Automotive without the Google Automotive Services. And the one company doing that is Stellantis. Stellantis is using the same operating system, but they use TomTom Maps and Amazon Alexa voice services for the voice service. And so it's
like, so you're using APIs and you're cramming things together. Yeah. Whereas Polestar and GM, like that's one of the reasons like I like the infotainment systems in both those vehicles, that it's somebody else's stuff. Yeah. To be honest. And I say, I want to go here. And the Polestar and the GM said, oh yeah, I can do that.
I got that. Yeah,
that's fine. Well, I want to go to this store in this town. And that's all it needs. I need to go to 2378 Main Street, right? Fremont. Yeah, no.
As you said, they offer the biggest advantages of the smartphone based systems, with along with some integration with real time vehicle data, so you can, especially in EVs, which is where GM's going with this stuff, to integrate that to give you better range estimates and routing,
charging stations, charging route things.
Go ahead, Steph.
So the bottom line of our survey really was that people are probably willing to do this if they see value, and that what matters is how it's marketed and how it's implemented. which is what we're talking about with the JD Power result. It's not implemented as well as, or when you're putting these hodgepodge of things together, it's the implementation that is failing. And I've had lots of conversations about the GM decision to pull the phone out and whether or not that's going to be good. And it's going to ruffle feathers. People are going to complain about it for a while, but if the system delivers, they will forgive. I think. One of the implementations.
I think what they should have done is they waited until they delivered it and then pulled it. I think that was the conversation I had with them. It was like, you should have like made the infotainment system and then pulled it, because then at that point everyone's like, this is so good that I'm not plugging in my phone right now. It's like,
if you do that, if you have it in there, people are going to be inclined to plug in their phone right away and not even use the embedded system. And so they might never experience that.
And I agree with you, Sam, and I agree with you, Roberto. Both are true, right? And saying it ahead of time, they lay in the groundwork. So they're going to get all the complainers talking about it right now. By the time they get to the car, they'll know that it's not there. They'll look for it and experience it. And anyway, and I think they would have a great number would have plugged in. We have a higher percentage than you would think that say, oh, they just didn't know that the system existed and they were plugging their phones in and just using their phones because they didn't really know what their car could do. That would absolutely happen to doing that. And it's the implementation part about that's where people are a little bit nervous. I'm in favor of GM trying this, but when you then have to sort of basically plug your phone in or wire your phone in to take your phone calls over Bluetooth, if you want to run your phone like an iPod, then you're doing Bluetooth audio, which is not as good. And so there's some limitation there's a couple of things on your phone that you would still want to do. Oh, like talking on it.
Yeah. Well, and this is the challenge GM has, is at least here in North America, Apple has, globally they're about 15% of the smartphone market, but in North America, they're like 55% of the smartphone market. So for iPhone users, now you've got to use your phone over Bluetooth to make calls, and for messaging. Yep. Most iPhone users, I think, use Apple Messages, iMessage, and that there's no Android version of that. If Apple made an Android version of iMessage, they could put that in the Play Store for automotive, and you could have that right on the vehicle. But they don't. They refuse to do that, and so that's going to be a challenge, I think, for iPhone users.
That's the big. For me personally, there are some things that I use that they don't have, that aren't in the Android store. But messaging, like people text me constantly all day I'm sitting at home, no one's texting me. But as soon as I get on the road, it's a textorama. And and I think I said in my article on ours, CarPlay isn't great. It's just better than what we had before. Like the fact that whenever I want to reply to a text or listen to a text, like it takes over the entire screen. Like I can't see the map. I can't see, which is just dumb. But I use that so often and they're like, oh, but you can do it with other cars. I'm like, no, you can't. They say you can, and you try to set it up, and it never ever works.
Mm-hmm.
Implementation, it's key. And as anything else, it's gonna, the first round of implementation is going to be a little bit fussy. I mean, this is all iterative. We started, with Sync and My Ford Touch and BMW iDrive, which is still existing in its own way, and it's gotten better and better. And Cadillac Q was supposed to solve a lot of problems, but wasn't quite as quick as it needed to be. And this is where we're at. And however this comes together, they're going to have some teething pains as well. And we're going to just keep making it better.
Yeah, so far my experience with the Android automotive systems in GM vehicles has been mixed. On most of them, it's actually been really good. On the Silverados and a couple other vehicles where I've tried it, it's worked great. On the Hummer, and on the so far I haven't yet had a chance to spend time with a more recent Cadillac Lyriq, but when we did the launch drive last year, it was very buggy. Yeah. And so both of those vehicles, had a lot of, the software was very flaky. And that's what GM's going to have fixed before they launch these other vehicles without smartphone projection.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's move along. Last week we talked a little bit about the debut of the Hyundai Ioniq 5N at Goodwood, and the fact that that Hyundai is putting in simulated shifting to simulate the feel of the 8-speed DCT they have in their other N cars, as well as the sound of the 2-liter turbo. And now the head of BMW M has come out and said, yeah, I think simulated gearbox feel might be necessary for EVs, because they're going to start doing electric M cars in the coming years. I don't know, what do you two think about having an EV that has little dropouts in its torque to simulate the shifting,
like a CVT? You're essentially you're just describing a CVT. On one hand, I mean, you're like, oh, if it makes driving more fun, I guess. I don't know. I'll probably end up turning it off, to be honest, because that's just me.
But I see the dilemma that's trying to be solved, because the visceral nature of a car with an engine is what it is, and I enjoy it. It's one of the reasons I like this LC that I'm driving this weekend, and it's one of the things that I haven't really found in the electric vehicles that I've driven. I enjoy what they do. Some of them I like better than others, but none of them have a real good connection. I always feel like I'm just not part of the process, and it's a combination of sound and shifting and all of that. And one of the things that I do like about what Hyundai is saying and BMW is saying and what Dodge said last summer with the Daytona is that they're thinking about it and trying to figure out what the solution is. Simulated sound, I probably am going to turn it off as well, because there's something else that has to come in, and it might simply be that drivers start experiencing things differently, and we reassess what fun equals and how it works out. And it might be just that it takes a long time for that to happen. I mean, the Kia EV6 GT goes really fast, but it just sort of gets there. You're like, okay, I'm now here. I wasn't part of that process. I was just sort of on board. I pushed
all I did was
press
the right pedal and
just press the button. Now I'm here.
Here we go.
So what the right answer is, I don't know yet, but I'm glad that the industry and different companies are looking at it and trying to figure out how it works for them and for the nature of how they want their drivers to feel. I think that's what has to happen. It might be in 15 years. Nobody cares, because we're just all used to electric, and that's just what we've done. What's what we do. But right now it's tough. It is one of the reasons that holds me back from buying an EV, is I don't feel that connected to them. The other half is infrastructure, which is a bigger problem that's not quite there yet. So,
see, we might say all this, and then we'll get in the Hyundai Ioniq N, and then we're like, nope, we're down. That's the other thing. It's like we might be like, I don't know, and then we drive it. We're like, yeah, this is it. This is the thing. They figured it out.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, I mean, the other night at dinner, you and I were, Steph, were talking with Lori Transu, the chief engineer on the Mustang, and we talked about that whole visceral appeal of performance cars. The sound, the ride quality, the way it shifts and everything. And I mentioned, when I first drove the original Tesla Roadster back in 2008, that in a lot of ways it felt like a Lotus Elise that it was, derived from, although heavily changed, obviously. But the lack of the sound, that goes with the engine behind, right behind your ears, and the shifting and everything, it was faster than an Elise, but it lost something. It lacked something. And like you said, maybe the generations coming up behind us, they won't care.
And we say sound, and we talk about shift feel, and we talk about ride, and a lot of it, as I try to narrow this down in my head a little bit, is it's that the engine moves, it
Mhm.
vibrates,
Yeah.
and that's the piece that we can't replicate at all.
It feels
You
like the
know,
car's got a heartbeat. Feels like
yeah,
it's alive.
and that's something that takes all of your senses to really feel. It's feel and it's sound and it's all of it together. It's none of and I just don't know quite how EVs are gonna get around that. I mean, I'm sure there's fake ways to do it, but again, we may simply come to the fact that we should just have a different expectation.
We just have to add some actuators in the car that shake the car to simulate the vibration of a V8 engine.
Yeah.
I
As we're
talked to
cost and complexity, that'll
Yeah.
I talked to Stefan Winkelmann, he's CEO of Lamborghini, about a year and a half ago about Lamborghinis and fake sounds. And he's like, we're not going to do fake sounds. He's like, we're trying to figure out a sound. We don't know what it is, but it has to be a sound derived from the electric motors. And so they're actively trying to figure out over at Lamborghini, like, how do you derive sound from the electric motors? And when they talked to their CTO a few months later, he was like, the 0 to 60 thing, that doesn't matter anymore, because anyone with a battery and a motor can go 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. He's like, it's all these other things that we really have to focus on. So so they're thinking about it, especially at the very high end with the Lamborghini folks. And so, they're trying to figure out how to recreate or just create a new visceral experience when you're in the vehicle, because I think it's just going to fundamentally change, but it doesn't mean that it won't be there.
Right.
And at some point, do you recreate what we're used to, or do you just have this new experience? Like, what is the good mixture? And I guess everyone's just like, we'll figure it out.
And that's what Dave Parasek talked about back in late 19 when they were debuting the Mach-E, and he talked about the sound, in the different modes. In the unbridled mode, they created a sound that was tried to create something that was evocative of a Mustang GT, but was not the same thing. It wasn't just replicating that. And of course, Steph, you mentioned the Dodge Charger Daytona EV concept, that Fratsonic exhaust system, that doesn't sound anything like a Hellcat. I mean, it is a unique sound, distinct. It's not necessarily derived from what the electric motor is, but it's a sound that is unique to that vehicle.
And they said several times that it's not synthetic; it's air over baffles. Somehow.
Right.
Wouldn't tell us magically how that, which is fine.
Yeah, they talked about transducers, which is basically means it's a speaker.
Yeah.
So it is synthetic, but
yeah, it's amplifying something, some
Yeah.
other. But it's interesting, and when I pulled our just generic sports car, sort of standard price class segment, which includes some things that I don't necessarily consider sports cars, but that's okay. In 2015, let me make sure it was 2015. Yeah, 2015-ish. Sports car sales were still 493,000 units that year. Not so much. Now we are looking at about 200,000. And we've got certainly a pandemic, blah blah blah. Poor launches for Camaro because of the strike and the pandemic and all sorts of things going on, and who's building what has a play in this. But buyer demand for sports cars has really pulled back. There's got to be a new way to connect, because what I don't see happening is that enthusiasts just stop. So whatever car enthusiasm looks like under a full EV umbrella, I don't have all the answers. Nobody does yet. But it's got to. I feel like it's got to come back, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
right now people aren't buying sports cars. Pretty much.
It's just me and you and Sam, and 20-something-year-olds buying BRZs and GR86s and.
Well, we're in that old. What's our next car space, and it's not an easy one. It's not an easy one to decide.
Yeah. All right. Final one before we answer a couple of listener questions. Steph, you listened in on the Tesla earnings call the other day, I think. And one of the things that Elon Musk said was, we're very open to licensing our full self-driving software and hardware to other companies, said Musk. And we're already in early discussions with a major OEM about using Tesla FSD. We're not trying to keep this to ourselves. We're more than happy to license it to others.
Mm-hmm.
Do you actually believe that there's what we would probably consider a major OEM that would even consider using this system?
Not really. I'm not sure. Those preliminary discussions are pretty preliminary. NHTSA's still all over it. And it may be promising, and I'm not saying they're never going to be able to make it work or making that judgment or even what NHTSA is going to find. But that feels to me like a huge amount of risk. And the other thing is right now, automakers want to understand how to do this themselves. They're not ready they're ready to have partners in some respects because they don't necessarily have everything in-house to be able to fix it out. But they're not ready to give this up and say, okay, this is our tier 3 or tier 2 or tier 1 supplier that just manages that system for us and defines it. So that it's going to be interesting to see when it happens. But at the same time, it's technology that there are some fundamentals to it that, that could be shared, right? All of the machine learning that goes into it, all of that stuff being replicated by every company under the planet. It does feel like it would be more efficient to train the machines in a couple of places, but not only one would be bad, but a couple of companies instead of too many. Am I at all surprised that they would like to license it? Not at all. Are they going to have significant takers in the near term? I'd be surprised if they're having a preliminary conversation. That conversation, I imagine, not being there, would have to be, we'll consider it when you got it working.
Yeah.
When you got it working, what can we talk about?
And my guess is it's probably a Chinese OEM, not anybody North America or Europe.
I also, Elon Musk says a lot of things.
That's true.
Having covered Elon Musk for years and years and years, like everything he says, you're like, okay, what's this mean for the stock price? What are we doing for the stock price? It's if you're not everything he says, if you're not putting that through that, if you're not putting it through that lens, then you're not really paying attention to what's going on, because it's a lot of like, oh, we're gonna make this thing, because our stock, it's a Q3 call, so of course you're like, hey, how about we get this? They're going to be pulling down some production locations so they can retool, and that means they're not going to make as much money. So if they can bump the stock by saying, oh, by the way, we're working with mystery OEM for FSD. Oh, and that could just be like he texted somebody.
It could be
like he texted the CEO of Volkswagen, like, hey, what's up? You guys want FSD or what? And it's just those 3 dots for the last 2 weeks of him like trying to figure out how to reply. So Elon just keeps looking. He's like, he's going to say yes.
And I think your point about the stock price is huge, because this was a lower, margins are falling with the pricing, which they say they know, or they knew was going to happen, of course. So the conversation for this call was about Dojo being able to train and we'll be able to sell it. And he's still, people are going to just want to buy a Tesla so they can lease it out to other people.
So the robo-taxis in 2019, there are going to be a million of them.
Yeah, there's going to be millions of robo-taxis.
I know. I used one just the other day, right? Didn't I? Maybe not.
Wow.
Okay.
A robo-taxi, the business is still speculative. I mean, there's a lot of forward motion into that, but it's still who's going to make enough money where. I mean, even if a car can go without a driver and you can go for more time, if you're in an area that's not dense enough to keep it moving, it still falls apart.
It's a very problematic business.
Yeah.
And I mean, I find it interesting that the rental car companies are not really, they don't seem to, occasionally you'll get some activity here or there, but they don't seem to be all that interested. And I'm like, well, you got the warehouse already. Like, you've got the process.
They know it makes money.
Well,
you figure it out. Maybe we'll do it. But
the one that is actually kind of interesting is there's a company that they've launched recently in Las Vegas called Halo, Halo car, and they're not doing autonomy or self-driving or anything like that. They're using a fleet of Kia Niros with remote driving. So essentially what they're doing is, when you rent a car, just like you would from Hertz or Avis, but instead of going to their place and picking up the car, they deliver the car to you with somebody driving it remotely. So somebody drives it to your home or your business or wherever you are, and you get in the car and then you drive it manually. And then when you're done, one of the remote operators gets on and remotely drives it back to their garage. That is kind of an interesting model.
I talked to the founder and CEO, and he was just like, he's like, Robotaxi doesn't make any money financially. It doesn't make any money. Like this way, he's like, it also doesn't make money for us to like drive these people around. Like, but we can have, because it's a car sharing. It's like Zipcar, which, if you live in a city, a lot of people, I use Zipcar when I lived in San Francisco a lot, because we only had one car at the time. And so for that, you're like, oh, I want someone, I just need a car to go from my house to downtown to go, to go out or whatever. I don't want to worry about parking. And so this is like, oh, that actually makes sense. Like your car shows up at your house, you drive it downtown, it just rolls away. You don't have to find parking. You don't have to worry about finding a parking garage. And then you also don't have to worry about whatever the weirdness is with Uber and Lyft at this moment. Like I can't even bother with them anymore.
Yeah.
But but they're like, and this one person can take care of 8-9 cars as opposed to one car. This one driver. Well, so they're driving a car because they don't have to take the car somewhere else, and so they can drive it back and then immediately take another car. Or they can park it somewhere and then they can immediately take control of another car that's across town. And so whether or not it works, I mean, all these things, they're very excited about, but it seems to make at least a little bit more sense than here's a robot that just drives around all day.
It's super convenient for owners, or for users, I should say, not owners.
Yeah.
The magic will be, can it scale up? Can it be affordable? And I still think it's a density problem. That doesn't go away because it doesn't matter how you get the car. If there's not enough if there's not enough people in that space that want a temporary car or temporary transportation, then I think that's one of the bigger problems is density. I mean,
absolutely. And
there were a bunch of those car sharing platforms in San Francisco that all just sort of like GM Maven went away, like another one went away, like Zipcar's still around. I think it's just they've been around the longest. That's the one people use. So
they're owned by budget now. So
yeah, anyone else who's trying to get into the space, they're bumping up against a known entity. So they're just like, oh, I don't know this company, and I have a Zipcar account, so.
Yeah, and this this is why Cruise, Waymo, Motional, they're all focused on urban centers. Mm-hmm. They're chasing that density, trying to get as much utilization as they can. And, even at that, especially with, a robotaxi ride hailing type of application, there's never a guarantee that at the end of any given trip, there's going to be another passenger waiting to go, from that same area to somewhere else. And so you're still going to end up with a lot of deadhead miles where there's nobody in the vehicle. And that's where your costs really start to skyrocket.
Yeah. Well, and it's true even if you're a Lyft or Uber, right? But you've got a lot of deadhead miles. So
but that's on the drivers that own the vehicles. It's not on Uber and Lyft. And even with that, they still can't make money. So
they still can't. And that's I guess it ends up ultimately being on the user because your rate's higher because they know there's something else coming on the other side of that. And that's why we don't use Uber and Lyft around here very often. I mean, it has to be pretty much almost an emergency for me. It rarely,
or if I'm traveling somewhere, and that's the only time, if I'm traveling somewhere and I haven't managed to line up a press vehicle to drive, then I'll take an Uber or Lyft, and that's it. That's about it.
It depends on where I'm going. If I'm going to New York or to like the LA show or Chicago, then I just won't even bother. I'll convention
right
center and I'm done.
Yeah. All right, let's answer a couple of questions from listeners. So the first one is from Joe about the Ram 1500. Back in October, Stellantis Ram issued a recall for a high-pressure fuel pump. It seems to warrant a replacement of the fuel pump due to starvation and fuel to the system. This actually happened to me once back in December, where when the engine just shut off while accelerating off an on-ramp to get onto the Long Island Expressway in New York. Luckily, it was late at night and no traffic, so I was able to pull over safely. I turned the truck off, turned it back on, and then slowly drove home. Took it to a Ram service center, and they told me about the recall and did some sort of update. They said parts weren't available. They said I can make an appointment 2 months later to look into it further. I was asked if it was safe to drive, and they couldn't answer that question. It's now July, and luckily I haven't had the issue again. How is it possible for them not to get the necessary parts by now? In my monthly Uconnect email safety update, it always shows the recall and consistently says parts not available. I love my fancy Ram 1500 Eco Diesel Limited, but I'm always worried what may happen. Any insights? Side note, love Nicole's videos and always look for the cookies and treats. Too bad I'm a diabetic. FYI, I also own a 2010 Camaro SS, a 23 Corvette 2LT Z51, and a 22 Pathfinder Platinum. Love them all. Looking for a fun convertible roadster as well, like a Solstice or a Miata, from listening to Sam talking about his Miata.
Miatas are awesome.
So parts for recalls. I mean, this has been a problem for a lot of recalls for a while now. And unfortunately, not all recalls can be solved by over-the-air software updates. Some of them actually do require hardware changes. We've had the Takata airbag recall going on for what, 5, 6, 7 years now?
7 decades, it feels like.
Yeah. There's still cars out there that haven't been updated because they can't get compatible inflator modules for these airbags.
I thought there were the parts available. We were now at a point, my understanding with that one is it's you owners not really, you're second or third, whatever owner, they're not paying attention.
Yeah.
So I think Takata on that one, I think we do have parts for that.
Yeah. Well, I think there was another one. There was somebody, is it Honda or Toyota, just recently put out another recall notice because some of the replacement inflators were also having problems. So there's still, and Takata went through bankruptcy, and a lot of the automakers actually ended up going to other suppliers of inflators and having them build new compatible inflators, going to Autoleave or ZF and saying, hey, we need airbag inflators, can you make us something that fits this packaging, has this connector on it and everything, and will work with this airbag system. But I think there were still some cars relatively recently that that they didn't have parts for. But to Joe's question, about the fuel pump on this Ram, or just in general, we've seen a lot of parts shortages of all kinds of parts over the last 3 years. And I guess I'm not totally surprised that they can't get fuel pumps for these diesel engines and the Rams.
And it's also, I think, a function. This one's been going on for a while, but NHTSA is rightfully so. I don't know, whether it's right or wrong, but the emphasis is on getting that recall notice out immediately and not waiting. There's a huge emphasis on there's like the short time frame. As soon as they think there's any kind of a problem, they need to report it. So we've got recalls that are being reported and put out there without a fix known sometimes. And they're just like, hey, heads up, we're going to recall your car. Or situations where the parts aren't available right away. It sucks that there's not a better answer, but you try to get a windshield for a new car right now, and that's a problem. If you get in an accident, you're going to have parts problems right now. Parts are difficult.
Yeah.
I recommend everyone just go download the Safer Car app from NHTSA, just to check your car for any potential recalls. I think you can just scan the barcode in the door jamb. of your VIN, and it'll tell you like, oh, these are all the things that are wrong with your car, and then you can call somebody at your local service center, and they can tell you it'll take 6 months, but at least you'll know.
Yeah. And, to your point, Steph, about getting the notice out there as quick as possible, if there's something that's a potential safety issue, it's probably better for owners to at least be aware of, this is something they should watch out for as a potential problem, even if we don't yet have the parts or know how to fix it. Keep an eye out for this.
Exactly. And Roberta, even if you don't download the app, even if you just go to your computer, if you don't know your VIN, you can say, I've got a, 1970 model year, whatever it is. And I pull a good number out there. But you can go to their website too, and just go by model year and make and car and scroll through it. It'll take more time to find your car than it would by knowing the VIN. But that's a huge point. And maybe that's the best thing coming out of this particular conversation. There are way too many people that don't check, especially with older cars. Recalls tend to be on older cars. There are certainly some that happen in the first, couple of years of cars out. But if you are paying much attention to them at all, they're more often it's a car that's out of production. Maybe that mini plate might not be, but it's the new generation. That's the older generation, and it could be a decade old that they're putting these things out. The Takata one is the scary one because people are still dying from that. And I guess the last one that I read about, it was an owner that had been trying to get to the owner and trying to get them. They've been mailed notice, they've been emailed notice, and they didn't do it. And there's only a limit. There's a limit to what NHTSA can do in that scenario. So having the information for anybody who hasn't been thinking about it, go to NHTSA.gov. Pull down the app, look on the website, figure out what your car needs, and do it. Because these recalls are not actually jokes.
Yeah.
It's real stuff that your car needs.
All right. Next up, Victor from Ontario, Canada. Longtime listener, first time caller. I first heard Sam on Twitter a few years ago. I've been listening ever since. Thank you, Victor. I wanted to share my experience with the car last night. Or my experience with the last car I bought, just to add some perspective and options for your listeners. We're typically a 2-vehicle household plus my motorcycle. In 2015, we were down 1 vehicle, but I did not replace it right away as I was working remote from my home office. And we had a 2003 Suburban for hauling anything we needed. In the summer of 2016, I landed a new contract. I'm a software engineer that required me to commute to Guelph, Ontario, about a 45-minute drive north via back roads. I used the motorbike for the first while, an 03 Suzuki GSX-R 1000, but as winter approached, I figured I'd better get something that would handle better in the snow. Wow, are you telling me a GSX-R 1000 is not going to work in the snow?
I mean,
Anyway.
It will for a moment.
Yeah. My local garage had a client's 2005 Toyota Corolla CE for sale. Honestly, I would have never entertained that brand or type of car, but it was a good deal. And they said it was in mint condition for its age, and they are a trustworthy garage. I figured for $3,500, I would buy it for a winter beater, and then in the spring get something nicer. I've now been driving this car for 7 years. After just a short time in commuting in this vehicle, I really started to enjoy it. It's light and nimble, handles well, good brakes, and good on gas, easy to park, and can pass those factors on the back roads with ease. Toyota Corolla, it'll only run for about 2 or 3 million miles, with minimal maintenance. So it's by no means the hottest car to look at, but it has a nice shade of blue and the body is in good shape. I then proceeded to get the windows tinted, purchased some aftermarket 17-inch rims, shot it with Michelin Pilot Super Sports for the summer, and of course Blizzaks for the winter. It's now a decent looking little car. I rust spray it every year, and it's still in good shape. There is no multimedia entertainment system in this car, and I prefer it that way. All the controls are easy to use and intuitive. I don't need to fiddle with settings, and my eyes barely need to leave the road while adjusting anything. For functionality, I added a Garmin GPS device that I just stick to the inside of the window for maps and directions, and that works well. For fun, I bought some $3,000 worth of stereo components and upgraded the sound system by installing it myself. Pioneer receiver with door and rear speakers, then JL Audio amp, and subwoofers in the trunk. Totally cranks the Daft Punk 211. And
yeah,
there you go. Other perks are it's economical to insure, maintenance costs are low, and I don't go into anxiety-induced seizure if I get a stone chip or door ding. It is, after all, an 18-year-old Corolla. This has been the most reliable car and possibly thing I have ever owned. I drive the bags off this thing. I grew up with sports cars, and although this is not one, I drive it like one. I can't kill it. It just goes and goes and goes. All I replace is tires, brakes, gas, and oil. I've not had one thing go on this car that I can think of. No component, belt, switch, nut, or bolt has failed. It is almost unbelievable. So I just wanted to share this with you and your listeners. Shiny new cars are nice, but they are a terrible investment. Dealers suck, and warranty issues can be a pain. There are other options, and you don't have to break the bank or go into debt to get a decent vehicle that you enjoy driving.
Slow car fast.
Absolutely.
Boom. Slow car fast. I miss my Honda Civic DX hatchback with like 84 horsepower every single day. I'm always on the hunt for a new one. And not a new one, like a one from 1990.
New to you.
A 1990 Honda. They just a bulletproof slow car that handles like surprisingly well and will last until the end of time. That's what we have right here.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very excited. He put a nice stereo system in there.
And got good summer and winter tires, so you're all set.
Yeah,
so
you throw some
twice a year.
There's some Blizzaks on there.
Yeah.
Sam, your Miata is now how old?
33.
Okay. See, mine was 16 my first one was 16 when I let it go in 2012. It's the same thing. The AC finally went on it, which was probably fixable. But it was a soft top, and we were driving it year round. And putting the now this is gonna sound bad, right? But the removable hardtop is not super difficult to do. But after 15 years of taking it off and not twice a year, I was like, kind of over this. And the power retractable hardtop was out. And I was just like, okay, after 16 years, I'm ready to update this. And so we did update it with retractable hardtop. And one of the benefits is that, because I think you don't put yours on the road in the wintertime, Sam, but we were driving ours year round, is that you get those weird great days in December, January, or February, and I can still put the top down. And I found that as easy as the soft top is on that like 97 Miata, I'm short and still had to turn around to pull it up and down. And again, after 15 years, apparently I got lazy and decided that just pushing a button would work. But with the button push, I will put that down if I'm only going 2 or 3 miles. Whereas with the soft top, it was hit or miss. Sometimes I would, sometimes I wouldn't. If I was only going to go down the street, I'd be like, maybe not. So I do use it more that way. But anyway, 16 years for that car. I've got a 2002 Audi TT that we bought in 2004. Still have that car. To be fair, that car hasn't been driven in about a year, but still, we have it. And the Cadillac that we've got now is, it's a 16 mile a year. So you can have fun with cars for a really long time.
Yeah, I mean the newest car in my garage is 6 years old, and we'll probably keep it a few more years, and then probably replace that Honda Civic with an EV. But I mean I'm all for driving older cars. Absolutely.
Still got my 2014 BRZ. Might be the last manual car I drive. Well, I don't know. I might just get another. Once they fix the motors in the new ones. But I love that car.
Get a used second gen BRZ in a couple of years.
Just gotta get rid of that goddamn Jaguar. Anyone wants a 2004 Jaguar? Hit me up.
All right. The next thing, I pulled it from the Discord as part of a conversation that was going on in there from Dave Wangier. Dave is in Australia. Says, I really wish battery sizing was optional. Batteries are so expensive, which puts EVs out of my reach. But I barely drive anywhere and have solar. I would be more than happy with 60 to 70 miles of range. Pull out 2/3 of the batteries, throw a few concrete blocks in there to fix the weight imbalance. I don't think you actually need to go that far.
They could just move the battery back. Just pull the modules.
Yeah, if you pull some of the cells from the modules from the front and from the back, so you keep the weight in the middle, you're good. Well, you don't need to throw extra weight in there. Anyway, sell me a cheap Kona EV, you cowards. In addition, they'd make more cars from the same amount of batteries, making them more profit and avoiding a current bottleneck in manufacturing. If everything has to wait for a 300-mile EV, then the transition of the whole fleet will naturally take longer. And this is exactly the argument that Toyota makes.
The Toyota makes.
Yeah.
Except they don't want to make the EVs the short range EVs, but it's they don't want to make. They make this argument because they don't want to make EVs. That's let's.
Right. That's a different argument. So, but to this writer's point, that is how we're going to get someplace. We have to realize that no, not everybody needs 300 miles range. We like the Mazda MX-30 in the US are already knocking it to heck and back because it was 120 miles range, I think. 100 miles range, but if you're a college kid, if you're in, there's a bunch of situations where that works. And right now, yes, the industry, in order to get enough consumers on board, you need comfortability with range right now, and you need infrastructure. Once we have those things kind of dealt with, if you're looking at 2030, 2035, 2040, we are going to start to see cars with multiple ranges. Just like we're talking about Mustangs earlier today. We're talking about a Lamborghini Urus that has two different versions. We are going to see that happen. It's just, it's going to take a long time. It's not going to happen really soon because we've got to get that sort of basic acceptance level met, that enough people are willing to buy it, that are willing to start thinking about it. And then you have to get the other thing is you get people who buy a 300, 400, well, not 400, but you buy a 300 mile range car today, and they drive it for 5 or 6 years, and they're like, you know what? I really
don't need that.
Wasn't that hard? It'll be okay.
Just dragging weight around. I talked to a bunch of automotive executives at a bunch of companies, and I'm like, do you think we're going to keep wanting to go? And they're like, eventually people are going to realize they need 150 miles of range. That tops. They'll probably have the one car like they do now. They'll have the one car that gets 300 miles, but the car they drive around, they'll be happy with a smaller battery, just cruising around town, and realize that they don't need 300, 400 miles of range because 96% of the time they're driving to work, they're driving around town, they plug it in, it charges up. But it's like we just have this like huge mind block in the United States. Like we have to be prepared. We're all Boy Scouts. We're always prepared. We're always ready. We're always buying these big trucks because we might go to the dump once every 6 months. Or big SUVs.
We might decide to drive from Michigan to California this weekend.
Yeah, you don't know what I'm doing. You don't know my life. And then the reality is, we kind of do know your life, unfortunately.
And I think the long range cars will stick around. It's not like we suddenly won't have long range ones, but I think we will start to see those options come through, and you see it a little bit now. And your standard range versus your extended range on any given EV today, really. But I think we'll expand that, and I think it'll be part of the process and part of growing an EV market if that's truly where we need to be. Part of it is getting the powertrain, whether it's our propulsion system, whether it's gas or electric, that actually matches your lifestyle and what you need. And today, we've got to grow the market first, I think. Or that seems to be the trend. If we wait and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait, then people are going to keep buying gas cars. To be fair, I'm not saying 100% that EV is perfect.
No.
I mean, it's the direction that policy and a number of things are saying that we have to go. So if we have to go there, these are the steps we're going to have to take.
And, for most people who, are not necessarily the enthusiasts that we are, not going to buy sports cars, people that are buying mainstream vehicles, whether it's sedans or crossovers, whatever, you look at, the sales volumes for something like the Toyota Camry or Corolla or RAV4, or CRV or Honda Civic, they sell in huge numbers, not because they're exciting, not because they're thrilling, but they get people where they need to go when they need to get there reliably.
They get the job done.
Right. And, for most people, 150 mile EV is going to do that. It's going to meet those requirements. And so I think when people realize that, then, there are certainly applications like, towing your boat up from Detroit to Traverse City every weekend. where an EV is probably not the best idea.
Or just going to Traverse City every weekend, even not towing.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Last one is from Satya. This one was directed at me in the Twit Discord, not in our Discord. But we can all chime in here. Is it a good idea to buy a used VW e-Golf? I always liked the Golf's look and size, and I do not mind the low range.
I love the e-Golf. The e-Golf is awesome.
Yeah.
It's
buy an e-Golf. If I could find an inexpensive e-Golf, I would buy an e-Golf.
It's got
no question.
All of the pretty much all the good points of a Golf, and it's electric. Yeah, drives like a Golf, looks like a Golf. At least the Mark 7 Golf. Yeah, it's the Mark 7. And so unlike the current Mark 8 Golf, it doesn't have the goofy touch controls and things like that. It's a fantastic car. Absolutely buy one.
Oh yeah, I would totally. I'm going to look up e-Golfs right now, see if they're on sale.
All right.
Swap the e-Golf swap that stupid Jaguar for an e-Golf.
There you go.
Oh, that would
it'll probably go farther without problems.
It probably will. It'll definitely go far. That Jaguar, man.
Steph, Robbie's got an old Jaguar X-Type, so
it was a present. I just want to make sure that I didn't pay for this. I didn't search it out. It was a present, and at the time we took it because we thought we might need it, and it is now the vehicle that has sat there. It has my wife absolutely hates it. So she's never going to drive it. It's just sitting there. My neighbor wants it. I just need to do a quick
just pull out the title, sign it.
Yeah.
Take $1 from the neighbor
do something
and say, here, take it away.
The radiator. It's early for me here on the West Coast. The radiator system. What's that thing called?
Cooling system. The
cooling system has a leak. I got to fix it real quick.
You don't. You sell it as is.
I'm like, here's
for $1, he can take it to a radiator shop.
I know. Here's your guy. No, he works on his car. He has a bunch of
he can fix it.
No, he's a great guy. We're very lucky. We have really cool neighbors, and one of them's a car guy. So I give him rides in really nice cars, and he's always very excited.
If he wants it, and it came to you for free,
pass it forward.
Tell him it needs to happen.
So he knows what needs to happen.
Yeah, there you go. He's going in with eyes wide open.
I think my wife said we should give it to one of her coworkers, but then she was like, I don't want to have to deal with him calling you all the time for problems.
No. Yeah, that's got to be part of the clause. P.S.
Yeah,
it's yours.
No warranty, no customer support.
Nope.
All right. On that note, Stephanie, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great, and we'll definitely have to have you back again.
It's been fun. I look forward to doing it another time. Thank you.
All right. And we'll talk to you all next time.
Bye.
Bye.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to leave up holiday decorations year-round. Others have the need to use their garage as practice space for their new metal band. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.